The pandemic and the lockdown officials instituted have taken a devastating toll on American businesses, but there is another perhaps surprising trend. Applications to start new businesses have surged significantly as pandemic entrepreneurs look to make money on their own in a tight labor market or see the crisis as an opportunity to realize a long-held dream. So what does it take to make it? And what are important life lessons along the way? Well, I have a very special guest today, and I asked him on to conclude our Outlook 2021, which has been a huge success. So thank you all for the success. So this is my gift to you now. Please welcome back to the show, Frank Giustra. He is a self-made billionaire, a global philanthropist who made his mark as a mining financier and as the founder of Lionsgate Entertainment. Today, he's the CEO of Fiore Group of Companies, the co-chair of International Crisis Group, and is involved in a wide range of businesses from mining to magazines to olive oil. And he talks about a whole bunch of subjects on his great blog, frankgiustra.com. That's a lot to get through. Frank Giustra, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Danielle. It's always great to be back, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. And I know I'm going to get a lot of emails. Well, you got to ask him about gold and Bitcoin. Yes, we will get Frank's take on that. But first, I really want to talk about life lessons and what it takes to make it. Because, you know, the first example that comes to mind is the success of Ring. You know, we all have the Ring, right? It was passed on Shark Tank. And then, as we know, was bought by Amazon for $1 billion. So I guess my first question to you, Frank, is, you know, these entrepreneurs that have a dream now, how do you know when you should filter out the noise and not listen to the naysayers who might tell you, hey, that's a bad idea?
Pretty much always. I mean, if I look back on my own career, which has involved many different careers actually over the years, I really didn't listen to very many people. Had I listened to a lot of the advice that I was being given in everything that I did, I would have never succeeded. And that's the truth. It's just, I think you have to blaze your own trail. You have to be passionate about what you want to do and then just do it. And if you truly believe in what you want to do and you think it's going to work, you got to go for it. And I mean, I look at guys like Elon Musk, and you know, everybody said it can't be done, and almost everything he's done. And you know, that's the sort of mentality that you need to succeed.
And I guess, you know, I was looking through old photos of you and going through old newspaper clippings. And one of them that caught my attention was that you were actually, well, the headline said you were a misfit back in high school. And that kind of surprised me. Was that a true headline?
That was a true headline. And there was an interview that I did. I was in my 30s at the time, and I was running Yorkton Securities, the investment bank that I ran for many years. And no, the reporter asked me about my childhood. I said, you know, I was a really rotten kid. I had zero focus. I was uninspired. I think the only thing I cared about was having enough money to buy a car so I could get a girlfriend. That was the extent of my ambition until about the age of 19. And then it all changed overnight.
Really? Overnight, you would
Yeah,
say?
yeah, no, absolutely. It was an epiphany. And what happened, I read a book, and I think most people have heard of this book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It was the first motivational book ever written back in the early 1930s. And I read this book, a friend gave it to me, and I bought into it. It was a very simple message to me. It was, if you believe that you can achieve something, if you truly believe, you will achieve it. And I thought, well, I want to be rich. And, you know, I came from a fairly poor family, and, you know, being rich was a very worthwhile goal for me, I thought, or I thought at the time. And I went for it. And I really made a decision to go big time, not to do it in a small way. I really wanted to go big, and I never looked back. I think I never looked back for the next 2 decades. Never looked inward either. I was just focused on making money for the first 2 decades of my career.
Had you shared your ambitions with your parents at the time? And if so, what did they tell you?
Well, my father didn't believe me because, as I said, I was a pretty misguided teenager, and he didn't think I was capable of doing anything. So when I told him I wanted to become a stockbroker, he almost fell off his chair. And so there was a lot of um, disbelief in the family about that decision I made. But I was committed. I believed it. No one else around me believed it, but I was convinced I was going to succeed.
Lionsgate founder, mining emperor, olive oil king. If I were to go back and talk to Frank Giustra not baby, but adolescent, and show them a picture and say, this is your future. This is what your future will look like. Are you telling me that he wouldn't have been surprised by the success?
I would have completely, 100%. Um, as a teenager, again, once I reached the age of 19, I was at a singular focus and I knew I was going to succeed. I just knew it. And if people disagreed with me, I would just ignore them. I was set in my ways. I was going to succeed, and I worked very hard in those early years to make it happen. Obviously, there was a lot of luck involved, and I think that a lot of people discount luck. My luck came in my early 20s when I made an investment in a small gold exploration company, and it made me my first $1 million. And you can't plan a successful drill hole; that just happens. But then it was really from there on in, it was really a question of what I did with my wealth, how to take a small success and turn it into a big one. So instead of spending my um, all that money that I'd made on fast cars and vacation homes, I invested it in Yorkton Securities. I bought 10% of the firm. I was the youngest partner by far, and then eventually I helped build the firm, and I eventually ran it for many years. So that really set the stage for my career for the next 20 years.
And I guess that's a lead into my next question. But so how old were you when you made that first million?
22, 22 years.
Wow, so young.
Yes. And like I said, I was very lucky. It was one of those things that happens in the mining business. As you know, sometimes you pull a drill hole and you discover a gold mine, and that's exactly what happened. It was breakwater. It was Breakwater Resources. It was a gold mine in Washington State.
The mining industry is not that big, as we both know, Frank, and I know a lot of very successful people in the mining industry. But there's them, and then there's you. There's success, and then there's uber success. So what takes you from a comfortable wealthy level to uber status?
I think, well, if in terms of my business, the business side of my life, because as you know, I'm also mostly in the world of philanthropy now. It's less and less business, but um, I think the turning point for me, if I look back, was making the call on gold in 2001 and starting to write about it, and being right. And I had reasons why gold was going to go a lot higher. I published those reasons. They were not mainstream ideas at the time. Certainly, the mainstream media and Wall Street did not buy into that was how things were going to play out. But I believed them, and I was right. And I've been right up until today. I continue to be right about what's evolved over the past 20 years and why we are where we are and why gold has been such a great investment. And then, so if you look at that, and what happened as a result of that opinion, I created 3 gold mining companies in 15 years. And so I think of the people that either followed my advice to buy gold or invested in any of those 3 companies. I've now started the fourth, called as Gold, which I'm a strategic advisor and a shareholder and a big shareholder in. And we're going to hopefully build that into another major gold producer. But if I think about the people that either followed my advice and bought gold or invested in those companies, and the fact that they made a lot of money, that to me spells success. When you're making other people money and you continue to do things that make other people money, it's a great feeling to have. And believe it or not, it does feel better than just making money for yourself. And that's, to me, that's how you define success.
Yeah. Yeah, and I could see it. And speaking about gold calls, you're still dead on, as you say, with your gold calls. When you were on my show, over a year ago, you were talking $1,900 gold when that seemed impossible at the time. By the way, so spot on. And you're really sticking your neck out when you make those calls, wouldn't you say, Frank?
Yeah, you are, but then again, if you have true conviction, and this is why I did so much research over the years, and I continue to do research. I mean, it's not like I just stick to the views that I had last year or 10 years ago. I continue to look at what's happening in the world. What does it mean, and how will it impact gold? And so I have to stay very, very current, even to this moment. I read everything. I look at everything and I have conviction. I truly believe that gold is something that everybody must own, and it's your insurance. It's your insurance against everything that could possibly happen, and most things, a lot of those things will happen.
What keeps you going, Frank? Because look, you're a billionaire, you're extremely wealthy. You don't still have to be part of this. You could, ride off into any sunset you want. What
Well,
drives you?
yeah, what drives me is that I realized about 15 years ago that I wanted to devote my life to philanthropy, and it felt good. It's a great feeling. It gives me purpose. It gives me a lot of pride, and it gives me peace. I found something finally, and I was chasing my entire life. I was chasing make money, do deals, as a means of fulfilling, your ego, whatever it was that was driving me at the time. And I never really found peace until I devoted my life to philanthropy. And as you know, it's most of my life now. This is what I
It
do,
is.
and I absolutely love it. And it's, to me, that is true success, is finding peace, um, realizing that you're living a life well lived. Um, that is success. It comes from within, not what you do on the outside.
Um, you brought up that motivational book before, and there's so many out there on the market. And one of the things we often hear, well, how important your network is, and surround yourself with people who build you up, and have kind of the same mind frame that you have and drive. Would you say there's a lot of truth behind that? How important is network?
Well, listen, I've never really, I don't see it that way. I don't look at the importance of network. Obviously, network, if you're successful, you're going to build a network, but you're responsible for your own success, and you're responsible for building your network. But I look at it a little bit differently. I think if I really look closely at the reasons why I succeeded in life, it came down to one very simple thing: surround yourself with people that are a lot smarter than you, and a lot more talented than you in ways that you're not. And I've had a good eye for choosing talent, to choose people that I surround myself with that can do things that I'm not very good at. And that's more important than anything.
A lot of people look at you, Frank, and say, I want to be like Frank. I want to be like Frank Giustra, right? A lot of times we don't see the blood, sweat, and tears. They just see the lifestyle now. What would you want to tell those people about the hard work that's really needed to get where you are at today?
Yeah, that's so true, Danielle. Honestly, he- the way that people look at successful people, what they see is they see the end result. Okay. They do not see the hardship that went into it, along the way. And I read a lot of biographies. I used to read biographies on everyone. Okay. And there's a very common theme in all of those life stories of successful people, is that they have moments where they think that the world is imploding around them, where they feel, self-doubt, a lot of self-doubt, where they feel completely alone in what they're having to deal with, the prospect of extreme failure. And I know that's happened probably 3 times in my life where I felt that way.
Mhm.
It was not an easy ride. There were moments where it was hard to keep a smile on my face, and I'm not sure. I didn't know exactly what to do. I had to just get focused and survive. But it was hard. It was hard, and I had to persevere. But I'm telling you, there were moments of very lonely moments when it's pretty scary. And I think, again, having read many life stories of successful people, it's a very common thing. People don't see that; they just see the success.
Right. And they don't see the failures along the way. And as you said,
Oh, hey, I've had a few.
and it's okay to admit that, right? And it's okay to own it.
Hey, absolutely. Listen, failure is the only way you learn. I've never learned through success. I've always learned my biggest lessons by failing big time and making really dumb mistakes, which I then do not repeat. That's how you learn. And so, failure is, if you're an entrepreneur and you think you'll never fail, think again. And by the way, it'll be good for you. One bit of advice: start young, fail early on in life, so that by the time you get older, you don't have to fail. any longer. It's true. And that's, I was lucky. So I started at the age of 20 in this business. And so I had 43 years to get it right.
Yeah.
So it's, but listen, failure is part of the equation.
Dinner time conversations must be so interesting in the Giustra household, which brings me to my point now about your kids, because I know, Frank, that above all else, your kids are on a whole other level here. They can have anything they want in the world. Their dad's a famous billionaire, hangs out with celebrities, philanthropist, has it all. How do you find that balance of, wanting to give them the world, but keeping them humble at the same time?
Yeah. Well, now that you're a parent, you will know what I mean. You will see this. It's really hard not to feel like you want to give them the world. They're your kids. You absolutely love them. You would die for them. You'll do anything for them. So it's really hard, but you have to hold firm. And because the last thing you want is to create some spoiled trust fund kid. They're the worst, okay? And so we had two very simple philosophies when we raised our children. One was to let them see that both their parents, not just me, but their mother too, were very philanthropic, really believed in what they did in dedicating their lives to help others. It's interesting. Kids don't listen to what you say, they watch what you do. Okay, they're more perceptive than you will ever believe, and they will smell the BS if all you do is talk and don't act. And believe me, I've been called out by my kids many times on many things. So that was one very important thing, is to show them through our own actions how to be a good person, how to treat others, and how to be generous. And the second part of it was that making them understand from a very early age that all of that wealth that they see around them is
Yeah.
not theirs. It's not for them. That they have to make their own way. They have to um, find, create their own journey, find something that they're passionate about and will love to do, and do that for a living. Strive. We can't create the path for them. You'll ruin their lives if you try and set the table for them the entire life. That's just then they won't have the journey. And the journey is what makes life interesting. It's not the destinations. We support our kids, obviously. Obviously, we want to give them a great education and help them as much as possible in deciding what they want to do. But they have to do it, and it's not, and they can't sit back and think, well, I can just relax. Mommy and daddy have all this money. That's not the way it works, and that's certainly not how we raise our kids. And I think we did a pretty darn good job. I have two amazing, amazing kids.
You absolutely do. And I follow your stories and see all the incredible things you expose them to. Are you totally supportive? So if they come to you and say, Dad, I don't want to go to college. College is not for me.
Yep. I,
Or
the
not. This is
answer,
not this is not the scenario, but
no,
you know
no,
what?
but that's a very good example. That's a real life example, and we've had those conversations. And what I tell them is ultimately you have to decide what you want to do. I recommend that while you're trying to decide, unless you know right away that you want to be, a musician because you're a talented musician and that's the path you're going to take. But if you're still unsure, of course go to university and make a decision along the way what you want to do. But that's up to you. And university isn't the answer to everything. I think that there are a lot of very successful people that have done very, very well that either never went to university or dropped out. There are numerous examples of that. So I said, but give it a shot. You should, while you're trying to decide what you do with your life, go to university. It's a great experience, and you will learn something, and maybe you'll create a network of friends and that will be useful to you for the rest of your life. And so both my kids want to go to university, so that's fine. We'll see if they make it all the way through. I think they will, but that will be ultimately up to them.
I feel that a lot of these lessons, Frank, come from your parents, like my parents were immigrants from Italy, came here and really, built incredible lives for their families. How much of those values that you pass on to your kids is really coming from what you learned from your parents, Frank?
Well, I think you'll appreciate this because if you had immigrant parents, you know what their mindset is is very much always the same. It's like they work very hard. They wanted to provide for their kids. They wanted to make sure that their kids had a better life than they ever did. That's their number one goal. So the work ethic is what I think you learn the most. That you know they worked hard, and I think that when you see your parents working hard, it has some impact on your own
Mm,
behavior. And I started working when I was a little kid. I mean, I always wanted money when I was I started, paper routes, cutting lawns, throwing hay, catching chickens in the middle of the night, construction, working in a supermarket. And I did it all, worked in a gas station, anything to make money. But to
wow.
me, it was because of the way my parents worked, it seemed like that was almost expected. If you wanted to have money, you go work for it. So I think that was probably the biggest lesson that they gave us was work ethic.
I want to segue into some business talk here, because you're part of that elusive billionaire club, Frank. What do you make of, I guess the new billionaires or more billionaires being created here by the Fed? We just saw Elon Musk overtake Jeff Bezos for, wealthiest man. Do you get involved in that race? Do you care?
I don't care. As a matter of fact, and I've written about this, you've seen my articles. I wrote an article titled, and you'll see it on my blog, frankgiustra.com, and it was titled, Who Wants to Be a Billionaire? I Don't.
Yep.
And you keep calling me a billionaire. I am not. I've given away, I could have been, but I gave most of it away and I continue as I make it, which is what I love doing, making it and giving it away. I don't want to be a billionaire. I don't think there's any reason to be a billionaire. There's no added value to society that one single person has that much wealth. If you are been fortunate enough to make that kind of wealth, you got to think about ways of using it to help society around you. And that's my whole take on it. Some people don't agree, but that's what gave me peace. And I think, and I, so what do I think about, all these freshly minted billionaires? Good for them. But think about you. You can't spend $1 billion. It's impossible. I've done it in my head. I did an exercise. Buy this, buy that, buy a car, buy a mansion, buy a yacht, buy a plane, buy jewelry, buy art. Just buy several homes. But you can't even put a dent in it. Okay. So what's the purpose of that balance of the money after you've taken care of your family? What it's to make more money. That's its purpose. That's what people do. They take what their excess capital to make even more money. But what does that really do? I mean, there are many ways, both through you can do it through philanthropy, charity, impact investing, ways to give something back, to really think about how can you use your wealth to make the lives of others better. And that's
You know, I asked you what keeps your kids humble, but you're one of the most humble people I know. So, when you get to that level, how do you make sure you don't become greedy and how do you stay grounded at that level? I guess is my question.
I don't know. I don't know whether it's in your DNA or whether it's through life experience. I think for me, it was just um, having enough wisdom to look, to see how other people suffer, whether it was through poverty or conflict, homelessness, health, education, lack of education. Then if you travel around the world enough, and you travel, and you even in your own community, as I did, walking around the streets at night, talking to homeless people before we launched our Street to Home Foundation. If you take the time to step out of your bubble and you see what is really going on out there, how other people are struggling and suffering and hurting, you'd have to be made of stone not to want to do something about it. I just think that most people, it's not that they're bad people or that they're greedy or that it's because they just don't step out of the bubble to have a look. They live in their little bubble with their community or their peer group, all doing the same things, making the same amount of money, living the same lifestyle, and they just don't look. If you look, you see how bad it is out there. And it's bad, really bad. It's bad in our own country. It's bad in our own communities. And then it's bad, obviously bad around the world. So I just think that people just have to just stop and think, stop looking at your own little world and just think that that is the end all. It isn't. That's a wasted life.
That's very refreshing thoughts, Frank, because as you know, I interview a lot of, wealthy people. But when you meet successful people who, can speak the way you do, see outside the box, give back, it restores hope for me, at least in humanity.
All right. Love and care for you.
You too. That concludes part one of our talk with Frank Giustra. Stay tuned for part two, where we ask him his thoughts on gold versus Bitcoin.